Indulge me for just a moment to follow up on a charming viral video from a few weeks ago that featured a little boy in Portland, Oregon. One of Mr. Trump's biggest supporters, Elon Musk, facing new scrutiny over $1 million giveaways to voters. The Justice Department warning it may be illegal.
Lester Holt shocks audiences as he moves on from NBC, leaving fans and colleagues stunned after nearly 4 decades at the network. His unexpected departure signals the end of an era and raises pressing questions about his next steps and the future of network news. Why did one of America's most trusted anchors step away from his iconic role? What does this mean for NBC and the journalism industry? Stay tuned as we dive into the story behind Holt's surprising exit. Lester Holt's journey with NBC. The name Lester Holt is synonymous with credibility, professionalism, and journalistic integrity. His rise at NBC has been nothing short of phenomenal, spanning over 2 decades and propelling him into echelons of trust and prominence within American journalism. Holt started off his career at NBC in 2000 when he joined MSNBC as a full-time anchor. Soon, an even temperament, sharp reports, and the ability to deliver news with an air of inherent authority threw him into the radar of network executives. This foundation would serve him well in the years to come as his career at NBC skyrocketed. Holt's rise was swift and grounded in a work ethic and sense of balance that proved endearing to colleagues and audiences alike. His early assignments at MSNBC anchored on covering breaking news, but his talent quickly positioned him for more prominent roles. By 2003, Holt was a staple on NBC, substituting for regular anchors on such shows as NBC Nightly News and Today. The fact that he was adaptable across various formats proved he had the versatility every good journalist must have, and this proved to the network that he could do more. The turning point came in 2011 when Holt took over as anchor of NBC Nightly News on weekends, a role that would embed him as a trusted news figure. True to form, Holt reported the news in a measured tone, starkly different from the sensationalism now often present in broadcast journalism. His credibility and thoughtful approach made him a reassuring presence for viewers, particularly during those moments of high national crisis. But it was in 2015, under nothing short of remarkable circumstances, that Holt's career reached its height. NBC was in a bit of a quandary due to the scandal of then-anchor Brian Williams, accused of lying about his coverage of the Iraq War. With Williams on suspension, NBC needed someone who could bring back credibility to its flagship news program. Holt was selected as the interim anchor, a temporary solution that soon became permanent as he took over the reins of NBC Nightly News. Taking the role of a lead anchor after a scandal would have been a daunting task for anyone, but Holt managed to navigate these choppy waters with grace and professionalism. His leadership put NBC back on its feet, and under Holt, the program resumed its position as one of the most trusted news sources in the country. His interviews with heads of state, his moderation of presidential debates, and his handling of breaking news put a stamp on him as a journalist that could be relied upon to deliver the facts with precision and care. Beyond the stories he covered, Holt became the face of NBC News. His tenure was marked by a rare blend of traditional journalistic standards and an understanding of modern media consumption habits. But anchoring the news wasn't all Holt did. He doubled as an ambassador for NBC, using platforms to connect with audiences digitally and appearing on shows like Late Night and The Tonight Show. That mix of gravitas and accessibility set him apart from his peers and ensured that he remained relevant. So why would someone so established and beloved want to step away from the helm? The reason might just surprise you: media and its transformation. You see, the media industry has gone through a sea of changes in the past 2 decades, and these are mostly because of the recent upsurge in digital platforms and viewer-changing behaviors. These changes have compelled traditional broadcasters such as NBC to catch up or be left behind. Lester Holt's career has spanned this period of transformation, offering a fascinating lens through which to consider the huge shifts occurring across the mediascape. It is safe to say that Holt has witnessed firsthand the changes that have occurred in journalism and news delivery. One of the most fundamental changes in recent years is the erosion of broadcast television as a primary source of news. Digital media, social platforms, and on-demand streaming services have totally changed the way audiences consume information. The days when the whole nation used to sit in front of the television set at 6:30 p.m. sharp to watch the evening news are over. Viewers today want to get updates in real time, and they want to get it on their smartphones, laptops, or tablets. And this is forcing the traditional news programs to struggle hard to retain their significance. Holt's own career is a reflection of this tension. Being a veteran anchor, he has had to adapt to new technologies and changing viewer preferences while maintaining the integrity of traditional journalism. One of the ways Holt achieved this balance was through his embracing of digital platforms. NBC wasted no time in extending Holt's reach beyond the TV screen, making full use of online streaming, social media, and mobile apps to make sure that his broadcasts could be accessed by everybody. A classic example is NBC's Nightly News, which began offering digital exclusive content where Holt could tell stories more in depth. This was a ploy to get the generation of viewers who prefer on-demand content. Also, with digital platforms, everyone can break news and even get massive followings while at it, sometimes even more than traditional media channels. There has been a rise in new media personalities made possible by platforms like YouTube, Twitter, and independent news websites, many of whom appeal to niche audiences and engage in a more interactive style of journalism. This has further caused a divide in the industry because customers will always go for news sources that match with their interests. Long-established news programs like NBC's Nightly News are now struggling for survival, not only against rival networks, but with a host of digital news sources. This fragmentation is exactly why having Holt as a trusted news anchor means a lot. Figures like Holt, who have successfully built a strong credibility, are very valuable, especially as fake news and misinformation are all over the place. His calm and measured delivery has been a counterbalance to the often chaotic nature of online news consumption, with their sensationalism and clickbait. Viewers are growing even more skeptical about sources of news, and the need for trustworthy figures such as Holt is very important. Yet news anchors, as the primary figures in broadcast journalism, remain massively in doubt. With the progress of video streaming services and on-demand content, nightly news programs may no longer be able to hold out much longer. The last thing younger audiences would watch is scheduled broadcasts. They curate news content most often through personalized feeds and social media updates. That is a big challenge confronting networks like NBC, which must find ways to engage with audiences who may no longer see value in traditional news formats. The speculation behind Holt's departure. Holt's decision to leave could be as a result of various factors. When there's news of such an important figure in journalism leaving his seat, it is only expected that there would be speculation as to why he is doing so. Being one of the most respected and trusted voices in news, it raises the crucial question: what could have been the driving force for him to decide to step away from such a prime position? While Holt hasn't given an explanation, several reasons come to mind, from personal ambitions to greater changes in the industry and possibly even inside NBC itself. Arguably, one of the more interesting reasons is perhaps Holt's desire to break free from the boundaries of traditional network news. After almost 4 decades at the top of his game, he might be looking for greener pastures, perhaps where he has more creative freedom. It is not out of the ordinary when accomplished journalists make career changes later in life and move into documentary filmmaking, writing, and even academia. These pathways allow someone of Holt's caliber, whose expertise and reputation run deep, to go deep into topics and reach audiences in ways that are impossible within the boundaries of a nightly news show. Holt has always been a journalist with a passion for substance over sensationalism. That might help explain why he could be disenchanted with today's news landscape, which leans more toward ratings and click-worthy headlines over serious investigative pieces. As the lines between news and entertainment blur more every day, a journalist like Holt, committed to the core values of fairness and integrity, may have grown tired of the compromises required by network programming. Maybe he just got tired of playing by those rules. There's also the unrelenting pressure of the 24-hour news cycle to consider. Modern journalism's need for rapid-fire content, often at the expense of in-depth reporting, is a far cry from the thoughtful and researched work that built Holt's career. The race for immediacy has changed the delivery of news, as nuance is sacrificed for speed more often than not. This rush, for a man like Holt, who is an avid believer in making comprehensive, well-thought-out news, was perhaps a little too much to take. Besides the frenetic demands of the job, speculation regarding the internal environment at NBC provides some insight that might have contributed to Holt's decision. Over the past few years, the network has faced its share of controversies, from staff scandals to questions about its programming direction. While no hard evidence links his exit to any particular issue, he might have felt that the general environment at NBC was not quite fitting into the mold of journalism he wanted to do. Like many media outlets, NBC has been struggling to stay relevant amidst falling viewership and increased competition from digital platforms. The pressure to innovate or perish may have been another push for Holt to step aside. But it could well be the case that Holt's departure exemplifies a generational shift in the news business. Big names like Tom Brokaw, Diane Sawyer, and Katie Couric are walking away from their anchor desks, and Holt's could be another sign that the veterans are making room for a new crop of reporters and anchors. Times are changing, and with a much younger, more interactive, digital-first wave of journalists, it is obvious that the way we consume our news is changing. Holt's departure might just be part of that larger shift. And then, of course, there is the personal side of things. Decades of covering wars, natural disasters, political scandals, and global tragedies can get old, and perhaps Holt simply thinks it is time for a change. Being an anchor for nightly news isn't a small feat. It's a role that demands everything, mentally and physically. Perhaps Holt is ready to step aside and live the life that exists beyond the newsroom. Whether that means pursuing personal projects, spending more time with his family, or finding a new passion, it's entirely possible Holt's decision to step down may simply be because of his desire to slow down after years of relentless news coverage. Of course, without an official statement from Holt or NBC, the speculation will continue. But one thing is clear: Holt's departure is a major moment in broadcast journalism. His decision not only raises questions about the future of NBC's news division, but also serves as a reflection of the broader challenges facing traditional media. With Lester Holt stepping away from NBC, the burning question on everyone's mind is, what's next for him? Holt's next moves. One obvious route for Holt could be documentary filmmaking. This wouldn't be a far stretch, especially given Holt's long history of investigative reporting and powerful storytelling. Documentaries give veteran journalists like Holt the chance to dive deep into the important issues that matter, far beyond the limits of a 30-minute nightly news slot. And with his knack for providing clear context and thoughtful analysis, Holt is practically built for this medium. Streaming platforms like Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon Prime are investing big in original documentary content, making it a golden opportunity for someone of Holt's stature. Imagine Holt using his vast knowledge to explore social justice, climate change, or global conflicts in a way that brings these critical issues to the forefront. His respected name alone could open doors for interviews and access that few others can get. He'd have the chance to create meaningful, hard-hitting documentaries that not only inform, but also inspire change. Another exciting option could be teaching or mentoring the next generation of journalists. Holt has always been a strong advocate for journalistic integrity, fairness, and truth. With the rise of misinformation and the declining trust in traditional media, there's a real need for someone like Holt to guide the next wave of reporters. This wouldn't be new territory for him either. Throughout his career, Holt has mentored countless young journalists, helping them understand the complicated nature of modern media. Universities and journalism schools would undoubtedly welcome him with open arms, knowing that Holt's wisdom and influence would inspire students to hold journalism to the highest standard. Holt could also choose to go into advocacy and activism. Over the years, he's used his platform to shine a light on issues of social justice, inequality, and civil rights. With his departure from NBC, he could take this one step further by directly supporting causes he's passionate about and driving real change. His trusted, objective persona means he can engage in advocacy while maintaining his reputation for fairness and impartiality, which is something not many can claim. Another possibility? Holt could return to journalism, but in a different form. Streaming platforms, for instance, offer the kind of creative freedom that's often missing in the tight confines of network television. Holt could take advantage of this shift by hosting or producing his own series, where he has full control over the stories he wants to tell and how he tells them. This would allow him to cover topics that modern audiences could relate to. If Holt wanted to take an even more unconventional route, he could dip his toes into the world of politics or public service. It's not unheard of for journalists to make the jump from reporting on politics to directly influencing it. Whether as a consultant, advisor, or even a candidate, Holt's vast knowledge of both national and international affairs could make him a valuable asset in the political arena. His calm demeanor, respect across the political spectrum, and ability to clearly communicate complex issues would serve him well in shaping policies or guiding public debate. Lastly, there's always the possibility that Holt may simply take some time for himself and focus on personal projects that offer a different form of expression. After years of anchoring, he might want to slow down and explore writing, whether it's a memoir about his incredible career or even fiction inspired by the many extraordinary events he's witnessed. With writing, Holt could get a slower, more reflective outlet that would allow him to share with the world his experiences and lessons that he'd learned along the way. Holt's legacy in diversity and representation. Lester Holt's leaving NBC is a turning point that goes beyond the network itself, sparking deeper conversations about diversity and representation in journalism. As one of the few black journalists to ever lead a major network news program, Holt has been a trailblazer in an industry where minority voices, particularly at the highest levels, are still few and far between. His career isn't just a professional success story. It's a powerful beacon of hope and proof that change, while slow, is indeed possible. When we talk about Holt's legacy, it's not just about his journalistic contributions. It's about what his presence has meant for others who've long been waiting to see someone like him in a seat of influence. When Holt became the permanent anchor of NBC Nightly News in 2015, it was more than just a promotion, but a true breakthrough moment. As the first African American to solo anchor a weekday evening news program, his rise shattered a glass ceiling that had existed for decades. His presence on screen wasn't just a win for representation. It was a visible reminder that black journalists can and should be at the forefront of newsrooms across America. To millions of viewers, seeing Holt deliver the news every night symbolized progress, a shift that felt as much about pushing the industry forward as it did about recognizing his immense talent and leadership. Representation, after all, isn't just about ticking a diversity box. It's about who gets to shape the narratives, who gets to ask the questions, and who becomes the face of truth in moments of crisis. News anchors play a special role in American culture in that they're more than just storytellers. They're trusted guides through complex events, voices of calm in uncertain times, and the people we turn to for clarity when the world feels chaotic. For communities of color, seeing someone who looks like them in such a pivotal role is transformative. Holt's presence was a message to aspiring journalists of color. You belong here too. But the impact of Holt's career goes far beyond just his on-screen presence. His leadership and commitment to excellence have triggered conversations about the need for diversity across the media industry. For all his success, the fact that Holt's rise still feels groundbreaking speaks volumes about how far the industry still has to go. Yes, his ascension to the top of network news is a cause for celebration, but it also shines a harsh light on how rare these success stories are. The reality is that systemic barriers continue to keep many journalists of color from reaching the highest levels of visibility and influence. And that's something Holt's career both highlights and challenges. So now that Holt is stepping away, the big question is, what happens next? Will NBC and the industry at large take his departure as a signal to double down on diversifying their ranks? Or will his exit be seen as a one-time milestone that doesn't lead to lasting change? All eyes are on NBC as they decide who will fill the anchor chair that Holt vacated. The choice of his successor will be scrutinized for what it says about the network's true commitment to diversity. No one truly knows whether NBC will seize this moment to elevate another journalist of color, or if Holt's departure will create a void in representation at the top. For the broader media industry, Holt's career has shown the importance of creating real pathways for talent from underrepresented communities. His success wasn't an accident, but the result of years of mentorship, hard work, and opportunities that allowed him to rise through the ranks. This is where news organizations need to step up, building pipelines that support diverse talent from internships and entry-level positions to the upper echelons of leadership. True diversity at the top doesn't happen by chance, but it's the product of intentionality and investment. But Holt's legacy is about more than just opening doors for others. He's also altered the way Black journalists are perceived in the industry. While overt racism in newsrooms may be less common today, subtle biases persist. Black journalists are often pigeonholed into covering race-related stories or overlooked for major assignments, even when they have the skill and experience. Holt defied these limitations, proving that Black journalists can thrive in any reporting field, whether it's covering international crises, political turmoil, or high-stakes interviews. His presence challenged stereotypes and showed that diversity in journalism isn't about being limited to a single narrative, but about bringing a fuller, richer perspective to every story. Holt also confronted the complexities of being a journalist of color in an industry that still struggles with issues of race and objectivity. For decades, journalists of color have faced heightened scrutiny and the perception that they're biased when covering issues related to their own communities. Holt, however, walked this minefield with grace and integrity. He's been a model of how to balance objectivity with authenticity, showing that being a journalist of color doesn't compromise fairness, but enriches the coverage by bringing lived experiences that deepen the reporting. His legacy proves that diversity in journalism is more than just appearances. It's about bringing new voices and viewpoints that strengthen the very fabric of the news. As Holt steps away, there's hope that his departure will inspire renewed efforts to promote diversity in journalism. His success shows that representation is vital for the health and quality of journalism itself. In a time when the media is under constant attack for being biased or out of touch, having a newsroom that truly reflects the diversity of the audience is more important than ever. Holt's career has been a testament to the power of representation, not just because it looks good on paper, but because it enriches storytelling, builds trust, and ensures that journalism speaks to everyone. Holt may be leaving the anchor desk, but his legacy isn't going anywhere. He's shown us what's possible when barriers are broken, and he's laid the groundwork for the next generation of journalists to take it even further. The real question is, will the industry follow his lead? The future of network news post-Holt. Holt's departure will be the end of an era. He's one of the last legendary news anchors who became household names in American television journalism. But now that he's stepping away, big questions loom about the future of network news in a world that's been completely shaken up by digital platforms, shrinking TV audiences, and changing habits. What happens next for NBC and other networks? Can they keep up with this fast-moving, tech-driven media world? And most importantly, What will the role of the news anchor even look like without someone like Holt at the helm? At the heart of all these changes is how people now consume news. Back in the day, figures like Lester Holt, Tom Brokaw, and Walter Cronkite were the trusted faces you tuned into every night. Watching the evening news was like a family ritual, a time when everyone gathered around the TV to catch up on what happened in the world. But fast forward to today, and that tradition is fading fast. Digital platforms, streaming services, and social media are now the go-to places for news, especially for younger audiences. No one's waiting for a set time to get updates anymore. They want it on demand, and often in bite-sized chunks on YouTube, Twitter, or Instagram. This shift poses a serious threat to traditional network news, which still sticks to a fixed broadcast schedule. So, NBC's challenge isn't just about finding Holt's replacement. They need to figure out how to stay relevant when fewer people are tuning in to live TV. To survive, networks like NBC will have to embrace the digital age, offering news in a way that's more flexible, interactive, and tailored to what today's audiences want. One of the biggest changes we could see is a reimagining of what a news anchor even is. Anchors like Holt weren't just newsreaders, but they were authoritative figures who offered stability and trust, especially during times of crisis. They didn't just deliver the news, they explained it. They gave viewers the context to understand what was going on. But in today's world, where news is often consumed through quick social media posts or push notifications, the traditional role of the anchor might have to evolve. Instead of relying on one voice to guide the broadcast, networks could move towards a more collaborative approach, with multiple anchors who each specialize in different areas. This could lead to deeper discussions and more thorough coverage of complex topics, rather than the rush to hit the latest breaking news. And by rotating anchors, networks could appeal to a broader audience, ensuring different perspectives are included. Networks like NBC might also have to change how they present the news. The traditional 30-minute evening broadcast might not be the best way to reach modern audiences, especially younger ones who are used to getting their news on demand. Instead, networks could experiment with shorter, digital-first content that's easily shared across social media. This way, they can meet people where they are, offering news in formats that fit into busy, mobile-driven lifestyles. There's also a huge opportunity for networks to explore interactive and immersive technologies. With advancements in virtual reality, VR, augmented reality, AR, and 360-degree video, networks could offer viewers a much more engaging experience. Imagine watching a report on a natural disaster, not just through an anchor's description, but by immersing yourself in the scene with VR technology. These innovations could completely change the way we experience news, making it more dynamic and personal. Audience engagement will also be very instrumental in shaping the future of network news. In the past, viewers were just passive spectators, watching whatever was broadcast. But today's audiences expect more. They want to interact with the content, ask questions, and even contribute to the news. Networks could embrace this by offering live Q&A sessions on social media, virtual town halls, or even crowdsourced investigative projects. Building a sense of community and participation could create stronger relationships with audiences and increase loyalty. Holt's exit might also prompt NBC to take a fresh look at what stories they cover. Today, it's not just about how you deliver the news, but what news you're focusing on. There's a growing appetite for journalism that doesn't just point out problems but also explores solutions. Networks that prioritize in-depth coverage of important issues like climate change, social justice, and technological innovation could stand out in a media world often dominated by sensationalism and negativity. Trust and credibility will become even more important in this post-Holt era. With misinformation and fake news rampant, audiences are getting more skeptical of what they see in the media. Holt was one of the few anchors who commanded trust across the board, and his exit leaves a big gap. NBC will need to ensure that whoever steps into Holt's shoes maintains the same high standards of integrity, transparency, and accountability to keep viewers' trust. Also, the competition between networks is about to heat up. Holt's departure could leave a power vacuum that rivals will be eager to fill. This could spark a new wave of innovation, with networks pulling out all the stops, investing in high-profile interviews, marquee shows, and even teaming up with streaming services to capture audiences. What do you think Lester Holt's next big move will be after he leaves? And do you believe anyone can truly fill the void he will leave at NBC? Leave your answers in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoy this video, please click on the next one on your screen.